I just fight real fighters.
The truth is, these sports-washing, shady characters are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to stop our fight from happening, and you're screwing over all your Mexican fans.
Jake Paul, in his usual delusional style, tried to hype up a fight with Canelo Álvarez that was never even agreed upon. Canelo, a true champion defending world titles, had no interest in babysitting a YouTuber with a boxing hobby. After Jake's video went viral, the world realized that he'd once again thrown out a fake news headline, just a month into the new year. This fight was hyped like a Hollywood blockbuster, but it never made it past the trailer stage.
Don't pay attention in anything.
Jake Paul vs. Canelo Álvarez was supposedly set for May 3, 2025, at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, a date so perfectly timed that even the universe rolled its eyes. Cinco de Mayo weekend, the most sacred time in boxing history, usually reserved for legendary fighters, was supposed to be the stage for Jake's fantasy matchup. But Canelo didn't even RSVP.
He says he wants to fight Canelo. I'm just saying what that's what he
hear you. Then why is he not fighting Canelo? I mean, it'd be a fucking 30-second payday for Canelo.
Then, Netflix stepped in, as if it had just discovered boxing. Their first major boxing event was big in marketing and exposure, but the big question remained, who was funding this nonsense? Reports mentioned a $100 million offer for Canelo, but no one knew where the money was coming from: Netflix, a mystery billionaire, or some random Saudi investor.
The reporting of the information May 3rd coming out yesterday, I don't think was coincidence, in the sense that perhaps there was a little litmus test being done there.
The whole setup felt shady, unnecessary, and about as legitimate as Jake Paul's boxing expertise. But the biggest red flag of all was the weight difference. Canelo, a 168-pound super middleweight who had spent years dominating world-class fighters, versus Jake, a 200 pounds cruiserweight with a record of beating retired MMA fighters and washed-up boxers. That's a 32 pounds difference, about as fair as an elephant fighting a cheetah. Either Jake wanted Canelo to bulk up and slow down, or he thought he could convince the world this was a fair fight. Either way, it screamed desperation. But the media ate it up. ESPN, The Ring, and even Eddie Hearn all speculated about the fight, while the only two people who truly mattered, Canelo and Jake's promotion, MVP, stayed quiet.
They said it was all but done, right? How did it go from all but done to a change of heart? No, putting it out there to maybe try to get to see, how the public would react to it.
No contracts, no official announcements, just a storm of clickbait headlines that worked beautifully for Jake. But cracks began to show. If Jake Paul believed this fight was real, he was deep in denial. Canelo never took it seriously, not for a second. Every time Jake's name came up, Canelo didn't just dismiss it, he laughed. And not just any laugh, the kind you give when a toddler challenges you to a push-up contest.
Canelo, Jake Paul's made a lot of noise, especially last week. Do you take any notice of him?
Who?
Jake Paul. Do you take any notice of him? He said
that team.
Here's the reality. Canelo doesn't chase gimmicks for money. He makes $40 million per fight fighting actual elite-level boxers. He doesn't need to share the ring with a social media star to get paid. His name sells arenas. Meanwhile, Jake Paul needs big names to stay relevant.
I'm thinking about is why you guys asking me for that especially fight. Jake Paul, please guys.
This is where the Butterbean problem comes in. Remember Butterbean, the novelty fighter everyone loved until he faced a real challenge? That's Jake Paul in 2024. The moment he stopped knocking out retired UFC stars, the illusion shattered. He fought Tommy Fury, a boxer his own size, and lost. No hype, no mystery, just cold hard reality. Jake Paul wasn't untouchable. He wasn't a threat. He was just another guy using boxing for clout.
He said maybe in 2 years we can talk, but
Because I think some people would love you for knocking him out. I think that's
maybe. Yeah, you're right.
Meanwhile, Canelo was securing a 4-fight mega deal with Riyadh Season, a deal that guaranteed more money, more prestige, and better fights than anything Jake Paul could offer. While Jake was busy yelling about fantasy matchups, Canelo was negotiating with Terence Crawford, Jermall Charlo, Dimitri Bivol, and David Benavidez, legacy fights and career-defining moments.
We get this tweet from Turki Al-Sheikh himself. He says, "Don't mess with the Lion. 4 fights for Canelo with Riyadh Season. The deal is done. A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of a sheep. Fear the lion, not the judge.
Then, just 4 days before what was supposed to be fight night, while Jake Paul's team was still fueling the illusion, Canelo casually went live on Instagram and shut it all down with just 12 words. No dramatic announcement. No lengthy statement. Just a quick, blunt message that erased months of nonsense in an instant.
And even under this, you have Terrence Crawford. I'm waiting on Canelo in September and going to shock the world in Riyadh season. So that tweet comes out, and immediately the thought is, holy shit, what the just happened? Because the previous offer was 3 fights for Canelo. That apparently was done for, that he was washing away and rethinking because Turkey was going to look to do other things because Canelo was supposedly going to fight Jake. Now it's 4 fights.
The funniest part. The only ones claiming this fight was happening were Jake Paul, MVP, and a few conveniently vague sources. In March, reports surfaced about advanced talks between Jake and Canelo, and media outlets like ESPN and The Ring speculated. But no official confirmations. The only people treating it as fact were Jake Paul's camp.
Hey guys, don't pay attention in anything. In this f***ing YouTuber, I just fight real fighters. Don't f***ing around with Canelo.
And just in case anyone still thought there was a chance, Saudi Arabian businessman Turki Al-Sheikh stepped in to drive the final nail into the coffin. Al-Sheikh, who has a strong aversion to crossover fights, wasted no time shutting down the rumors. He retweeted a post from The Ring magazine, which he owns, dismissing the entire idea. Then, on February 8, 2025, just 1 day after Canelo humiliated Jake on Instagram, Al-Sheikh made it clear with a direct shot at influencer boxing: Canelo fights real fighters. No ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation. Jake Paul was never in the conversation.
To expose him. So we had a signed contract to fight. Here you can see Canelo's signature and my signature to the right, claiming he's not fighting YouTubers. Bullshit. Look at the poster. We were announcing Tuesday, February 11th, claiming he fights real fighters, but he's fighting Crawford, a 135-pound fighter, and running from a real fighter like David Benavidez.
But this wasn't just about Jake Paul. Al-Sheikh has been on a mission to take boxing back from gimmicks and YouTube stunt fights since he started investing in the sport. Riyadh season has been signing legitimate fighters and putting together super fight cards that fans actually want to see.
You're a money-hungry squirrel chasing your next nut. The truth is, these sports-washing, shady characters are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to stop our fight from happening because they couldn't fathom the fact that they can't create a bigger fight than me and...
The backlash against Jake Paul didn't stop there. Even TKO, the parent company of UFC and WWE, wants nothing to do with him. Jake has spent years attacking Dana White and the UFC while simultaneously trying to secure a UFC deal. He's trashed fighter pay, challenged UFC stars, and called himself the savior of combat sports. But behind the scenes, he's not even on their radar. In January 2025, while Jake Paul was talking about making the biggest fights happen, TKO executives were in Riyadh meeting with Al-Sheikh, Dana White, and WWE President Nick Khan. The message was clear: Jake Paul wasn't in the room because he wasn't wanted.
To get a guy like Tyson and
to try to get some credibility back.
When he fought somebody that was actually his age and was actually a boxer and was actually his size, he lost.
UFC and WWE have a strong relationship with Riyadh season. They're expanding globally, signing major partnerships, and working with people who actually run the sport. Jake, on the other hand, built his brand on attacking Dana White and the UFC. Now, as boxing shifts towards Saudi Arabia, he's realizing that his stunts don't work on the people who make the decisions.
A potential showdown in May, Cinco de Mayo weekend. At the same time as all of this, there is great interest from Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season to put on a Canelo Álvarez versus Terrence Crawford fight. So these two conversations are happening somewhat in parallel.
The brutal truth. Jake Paul doesn't fit the future of boxing. The gimmicks are dying out, and the sport is evolving. Real boxing is back, and if you want to keep up with updates, hit subscribe and check this space regularly.
Is a two-faced lion fucking nut job, you know? And yeah, me and Oscar are never going to be cool.
The situation surrounding Jake Paul's attempt to fight Canelo Álvarez is an interesting and revealing look at how modern media and celebrity boxing are interacting with the established world of professional sports. Let's break down the key points to understand it more thoroughly.
My understanding is, as far as MVP is concerned, they didn't really care about the Terrence Crawford fight. One fight's happening in May, one fight is scheduled to happen in September. I did get the impression, and this came to light last night, that let's just say the Riyadh season side of things weren't too keen on the guy who they're about to pay a ton of money.
Jake Paul has a reputation for stirring up hype and headlines around potential fights, often creating stories that aren't necessarily based on reality. His idea of fighting Canelo Álvarez, one of the biggest names in boxing, was one such example. Jake hyped the fight as though it was already set, mentioning a date, May 3, 2025, and a venue, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, that sounded too good to be true. The hype was absurd, and people took it seriously because of Jake's ability to generate media buzz. However, the reality is that Canelo had never agreed to fight Jake. Canelo, a professional boxer who has spent years defending world titles, had no reason to babysit a social media star. For Canelo, a fight like that would be a step backward in his career. He's not chasing gimmicks for money, unlike Jake, who needs big names to stay relevant in the boxing